Welcome to Women in Public Safety podcast, where real life meets raw truth. I'm your host, Harriet Westmore. I'm a state parole officer dedicated to unraveling human complexities through true life cases, what we will call Case Chronicles. Join me weekly as we explore gripping narratives from the front lines of law enforcement and social services, from triumph to despair. We will uncover human resilience, vulnerability, and lastly, of course, justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media for the latest episodes and to join in the movement for change. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is Harriet Westmore with Women in Public Safety podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss our challenges and triumphs for those of us who work as a first responder. That could be law enforcement, that could be firefighters, medic, corrections, social work, you name it. Anybody who's on the front line serving the public, that's what we are here all about to discuss and our challenges and triumphs. So I'm just so excited today because I have a very special guest. We're going to discuss a topic that is near and dear to me and is something that's very, very relevant in today's society with things that are going on in the entertainment, quote unquote, for those who are listening, entertainment industry to just our everyday lives. And that is the topic of human trafficking. It affects us on all facets and all across the gamut of our, of society. So I want to reach out and say hello to my friend that I met online. And she was, gracious enough to come on because she is a very busy lady, but I so appreciate her to come on and to discuss her experience as a former survivor of human trafficking. Her name is Alicia Tappan. I want to kind of give you a background of who she is. And she is not only is she a survivor of human trafficking herself, she is a powerhouse and a change agent. She is the founder and CEO of Tappan Consulting Inc., which is a nonprofit that provides survivors of human trafficking with the power of platform to share their stories. She's currently pursuing her PhD in forensic psychology with a concentration on crisis management, and she has extensive work experience in working with trauma-informed care and human trafficking. She is a public speaker, she is a grant writer, she's a retreat host, and she and her husband and 3 children, all sons, who lives in the sunny state of Florida. In 2019, she was Attorney General's Ashley Moody recognized her as a Survivor of the Year in her efforts in building capacity for human trafficking and awareness. She's a survivor and leader, and her passion is to help others to share their story and get their stories out about the human trafficking experience and to, bring awareness to everybody because not everybody understands exactly what human trafficking is. So, Alicia, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us and just speaking to my audience. And I want people to be aware of what you do, and we celebrate you and of your journey. So, welcome.
Thank you, Harriet. And I love the enthusiasm that you have for this particular demographic because most people, when they talk about human trafficking, they get scared right away, and they're like,
Absolutely.
too big, it's too dangerous, it's too much. And honestly, when you really look at it, it covers all the dynamics of trauma. So when we really understand human trafficking, we can sort of better relate to domestic violence, incarceration, addiction. And when you really look at what a survivor is capable of, they're resilient entrepreneurs. So I celebrate when we have these conversations because we're giving survivors a voice and a choice again to be able to share their stories, which I think people think is taboo because we're so diligent on confidentiality. And I appreciate that as we leave the life, as we're being removed from trafficking situations. But when we get to the other side of our healing, most survivor leaders are so excited to get out into the public and be like, this is what happened to me and this is how I want to change the world. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of my mission in life. My trafficking story happened and it's interesting because it was 21 years ago yesterday when I was initiated. So I woke up just feeling this nuance, like your body really does keep the score. I felt like my body was crabby and cranky, and I had all these tension, headaches and things, and I was like, on right now. And then I was like, what's today? Just to my husband in general, like, what day is it? I can't really remember. And he's like, it's June 3rd. And I was like, oh,
wow.
yeah, right. Just to be aware of those trauma cues. Those are things that happen without us even really recognizing that they're happening. So to give you a little background, my story happened when I was in high school. My church trafficker was a coach. He was the male track coach, and he had gotten away with basically creating this sex ring within the high school. And he portrayed himself like a father to the fatherless. He was a predator posing as a coach, and he had recruited and groomed these guys on his track team to do favors for him. And it starts really simple, right? He gains their trust by saying, hey, I saw you failed your math test. Let me help you get extra credit. Or you missed, a school day. Let me go see if I can talk to administration about your absence. And he sort of created this trust bond by doing favors for them first. I call them isolated compliments. He sort of segregates you from your peer group and then really boosts your self-esteem with that. So it doesn't start in violence, right? It starts with kindness and compassion and love even.
Right.
And then he sort of started asking them for favors, right? So it was, can you help me take these papers down to the principal's office? If you're willing to do that, are you willing to go run me an errand? If you're willing to do that, are you willing to help me, and what he had was really interesting, were fake Rolex watches. Were you willing to sell these for him? And this was back in dial-up internet. So you have to think about how intentional the time and commitment it was to upload a picture.
Right.
Then what he did, which was really bizarre, and parents didn't even see it coming, was that he asked for permission to open up bank accounts in these kids' names. And he gave them a portion of the proceeds from these fake Rolex watches.
Wow.
And we know they're fake because the investigation tells us. But at the time, the kids thought they were real. So when they're selling them for $500 and they get $50 to $100 a pop, that's big money for a 15, 16-year-old.
Exactly.
Especially back then.
Exactly.
Right? So knowing that, if they were willing to do that, were they willing to sell weed? Were they willing to sell cocaine? Were they willing to record their intimate relationships with their girlfriends? And you wouldn't think that that's something that somebody would be like, yeah, sign me up. Well, if they didn't know it, but they said yes to the spot that he provided, the drinks that he provided, all of the party favors, if you will, to make it happen, you're might willing to do that. And this was at the time really when the Paris Hilton sex tape was leaked. So people thought when these videos were starting to surface that kids were just copycatting and imitating celebrities, right? They didn't see the violence that was behind it. So unbeknownst to me, all this is happening under this radar and this guise of this coach who's a father to the fatherless, right? He was credited, he was charismatic, funny, good looking, had a wife and a small child. He had the perfect cover. And I get pulled into the mess because I was the National Honor Society president, student council president. Like, your girl was trying to be a doctor, trying to get out of a small town. My third grade teacher was the same as my mother's. So you would think, based on this situation, that the gossip would precede, right, any violence. But unfortunately, they chalked it up to kids being kids, behavior issues, hormonal teenagers, all this stuff. So no one saw the guise of the coach. Instead, we were celebrating the end of the year track meet. And we just won states. It was a big deal. And the coach invited everybody, parents, faculty, and kids, over to his house for a cookout. And around 8:30 at night on a Friday, he sort of says to parents, thanks for coming. We had a great year. I'm going to let the kids hang out till 10, but, party dismissed, basically. And I was spending the night at my friend's house, just a few houses down the street. So I could drive. I had a job. I was a leader. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't have any of these vulnerabilities. But because I'm a kid, right, and my prefrontal cortex of my brain, where we make rational decisions, wasn't fully developed. So I'm there for camaraderie, right? And when everybody leaves, he sort of walks us down into the house and into a basement where it's set up like an entertainment space. It's got a big screen TV and a foosball table, couch, all that stuff. You could tell he clearly had people over all the time there. And he sort of sits us down and he says, I don't want to be responsible for pushing play, but I want you guys to watch this movie. Okay, that's my first red flag, because I'm like, what does that even mean? And again, let's go back to intentionality. Be kind, rewind, right? It was a VCR and a VHS. So with those two things, I now go, he set this all up. And what we were exposed to was a homemade porn made by two of our friends.
Oh.
And most of the people, when I tell this story, they sit there just completely shocked, like, how, why, what? And I'm thinking, now put yourself in my shoes at that age, in that moment, just as shocked, going, I don't know what to do. And my friend says, that's really weird. We'll hang out for another few minutes and then we'll leave. Okay. You know, like I kind of am curious of what's going on, but I also don't know what to do. And this is supposed to be somebody I trust. This is an adult. That some of these people have been here before. They are like, it's not a big deal, you know, trying to dumb it down. And I don't have a lot of memory after that. The next memory I have is my head hitting the back of a hot tub and my friends taking turns raping me in front of everybody. And I panic, right? And I get out of the hot tub and I'm running, trying to find my clothes. And I look up, and on the balcony of the second story, you can see him and a bunch of my friends cheering these guys on. And he's recording it.
Oh.
So it wasn't that they'd made sex tapes for him. He made sex tapes from them, right? And so he was uploading it online as pornography. And for real, it was childhood rape. So that was my initiation that night. I pass out, I guess. I don't really know. The next memory I have is waking up under a coffee table, finding my stuff neatly packed on top of it. I had been washed like somebody else's shampoo. I didn't smell like a hot tub. I didn't smell like myself. You know, I could tell the difference. And so I sort of run the next morning out the back door because I'm too afraid to go out the front door that I came in the night before. And I walk down to my car and go to work. I don't even stop at my friend's house. I don't know what just happened, and I don't know how to process it. So what I did know was, don't make a scene, just go to work. That's where your parents think you're supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to be doing right now. If you miss work, you know, it'll cause more drama, right? So like, just go to work. And so I'd show up, and my supervisor is only a few years older than me, right? So I'm a junior going into my senior year, and she'd already graduated. And we sort of pull her aside before we get up and going. We should work in ice cream. So, you know, we know we're going to be on our feet for the next 6 hours, and it's summertime. So I ask her, you know, like, what does it mean to have sex with two guys in one night? And she sort of licks her lips and laughs and goes, you might as well get used to being called a slut, because that's all you'll ever be known as.
Wow.
And I just remember thinking, like, that's not even close to the truth. But what does she know, right? Let me get home. Let me figure this out. So I finish my shift, go home, take a shower, call my best friends. By the time they show up to my house, which, you know, they don't live far, but I've had the moment to think about it. And I kind of corner them, and I was like, look, y'all left me in that party last night. I think I was raped, just like that. And again, I met with this, well, you don't want to go around accusing anybody, do you? Like, you don't even remember. Rape's a really strong word. You could ruin these guys' lives. They have full ride scholarships to college. I don't know what to do with any of that now. I've tried to tell twice. I was silenced both times. And I asked people, would you tell your parents? No, like, I'm a kid. I just went to the truth source that I thought was the truth, and now they told me I'm lying. So if I lie, I have to be able to back it up, and I don't remember. Right? I just sort of have this feeling. I can feel it in my body. I can smell different. Like the things don't add up. Why was I left there? You know? And anyway, I thought it was over, right? I thought that I got raped. Okay, I can deal with that. But what ends up happening is this guy starts sending kids my age over to pick me up, to take me to the next graduation party and the next graduation party and a college party. And while their parents are celebrating their graduation, I'm getting raped in the basement for drugs, some money, and a point system that they created. Right? So this is right before Facebook was created. And I don't know if you know the history of that, but it started with a hot or not scale. And it was happening in my school. So they had put these girls on this like status of like points, let's call it at 1 out of 100. And the virginal you were, the more points you were worth. And so it was like this way for them to beef each other up. And he promised them they could go to college without having to be a virgin. You don't want to do that, right? Let me set you up this party. Let me set you up this thing with your girl, right? And so he gained their favor by letting them rape girls. I was not the only one. When it all gets said and done, it starts to come out much like a few months later. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people ask, well, why didn't you deny going? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you, fight them? I tried. Your tires get slashed. There's dog poop on your windshield. Your little brother gets threatened. They threaten to expose you to the school. All these things. Like, I was working on scholarships to go to college. I didn't want those things to be tarnishing my record,
Right.
so it was easier to just say yes and let them hype you up and be the party girl, because it was just summertime. So I thought I could get away with, like the nuances of that. And they started buying you anything you wanted. It didn't matter. Like, all I had to do was like say, oh yeah, I like that. And the next day it would be delivered to me, right? By this guy who my mom thinks I'm like dating the cool kids in high school, because my rapist was the quarterback of the football team.
Wow.
Right. So
Wow.
when you look at that, and when school comes to start for my senior year, I started getting calls from these different administrators, the advisors from these the extracurriculars, National Honor Society and Student Council. And they're like, hey, Alicia, we heard about your reputation this summer. We're going to ask you to step down. So instead
Wow.
of telling me or asking me or offering to help, they
Mm-hmm.
just exploited a rumor on me. They just basically said, we don't want to help you. We're not interested in what you're going through. Clearly, you're a hormonal teenager and it's getting out of control. And it was totally unlike me, right? I'm a 4.0 student. Like, I've
Right.
never been in trouble. I played sports. I helped kids all the time. I was the girl that they called if they needed something at school. And yeah, I was leader. And so just to instantly see I was abandoned and rejected, my mental health plummeted, just fell to the floor. And I actually call it like less than zero. I don't think that there was even a point scale to tell you how I was feeling, because I went from never drinking to drinking every day, smoking weed every day, popping pills, cutting myself, trying anything to numb this pain. And I couldn't seem to die. I attempted suicide 3 times and still survived it. Like, I couldn't explain, and I didn't have a reason to live, but I also couldn't really figure out how to end it. And I think those were really cries for help. I don't think I was really trying to die. I just didn't want to live. And so school gets going. My math teacher, who's also the girls track coach, he says, Alicia, at the end of the semester, we're going to have a celebration, but not that kind of party.
Oh, so he knew.
He knew, right? So I think it's right before Christmas. The athletic director sort of pulls me aside. I've already been in school suspension, right? I've been tardy. I'm missing class. I'm starting to lose my potential to graduate. And he saw this rapid change in me. And he pulls me aside and he says, Alicia, what happened to you? And he says it just kind of like that. No, non accusatory, not assumptive. And I, like a 17-year-old kind of stubborn kid, I was like, I don't know. I think I was raped. And like,
Mm.
just pass it along, right? And he's like, oh, okay, so this is what we're going to do. He's like, you need to graduate, right? You need to go to college. High school is not for you. This is definitely something that you can get past. He's like, I would like for you to come to my office every Friday and let's just check in. I was like, that's kind of weird, but okay, And he just started filling my head about college and how great it was going to be. And I don't even need to buy the books. I could pass with just going to class, and it's going to be so much better. And what he was doing was obviously empowering me, but he was also distracting me from all the chaos. And
Mm-hmm.
what he did was start an investigation. So he went to law enforcement and he says, hey, I got this girl, something happened to her. We don't know what's going on. And he sort of started, I guess, asking some kids, kind of what happened. And then he found one that decided to tell, because I guess she felt like she betrayed me or something. And so the investigation started, and we found 33 other victims just like me.
33.
One girl had been sent to a psychiatric ward. Like, they were all struggling. You could see their decline. They were all sort of stabilizing, trying to get to the end of the rope. But 33 other victims. He had victims at a school before mine, my school. He quit the summer that it happened to me, moved to a new school, and started the ring again. So between 3 schools, 33 victims, and he'd been getting away with it for decades. So that obviously warranted the need for my testimony. And I get pulled down to the office, and they're like, we've got all these victims. We have 17 written testimonies saying that they witnessed you being raped in this hot tub. How do we get you to fight? And I was like, I don't want to. I pled the fifth. Really, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so when they started showing me all those written testimonies saying that this happened, I finally felt like somebody saw me. And they pulled all these women together, the students, the victims, and their moms and dads, and they all came to my house and started rallying. We're going to take this guy down. We're going to castrate him. We're going to throw him in jail, like all these really crazy things. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to be anywhere near this. You know, I'm trying to graduate. I want to go to this college thing, you know. And anyway, but my mom kind of looked at me and she's like, if not you, then who? Who's going to do it? And I think that planted a seed in me. Like, I didn't really feel like, okay, yeah, let's go do it. I knew that if anybody had the opportunity, it was going to be me, because I had enough experience now of the rejection that I could speak to how crazy it was. They had all these other victims. Like, we were going to be a powerhouse. So if, I was like, I guess if I can go to college and go to court, I'll do both. And so that was the agreement my parents and I had. And so I applied to get as far away as possible to go to college. And I'm from Michigan. I moved down to Florida and I got accepted into university down here. And I tried to start my life over, right? Like, that was the best idea I had. They didn't really have counseling services for me. I was too smart for my own good anyway. You know, I seemed like I was fine once it all came out. And really, I was just suppressing everything. But when court came around, all the other victims bailed. Every single one. And so it was me versus my hometown school district, because they found out that the Board of Education had been there. The janitor, the resource officer, some of the other staff had all been at these parties over time. And it was a huge ring, and they had to go after the entire school district to win. So now I'm not just going up against the coach and my two rapists at that party, but everybody who had been
right.
And it was grueling. Failed the entire first semester of college due to absences, because college don't play. And even though I aced the class, I still failed. So you can just imagine my self-worth is really not getting better. And I had learned this party mentality. So I could go to school from 8 to noon, and then I could party all night. And it was easy. And so I got mixed up with the wrong people really quickly. I'm proud to say, though, I graduated. It was probably 3 years into college when the court case was finally settled, and we won. Yay! He called my case rape and conspiracy. They didn't have really a word for how I got in the hot tub. So this conspiracy theory was their motivation. He goes to prison for 7 years. My rapist got, that's it, right? But at that time, that was the best they could do, I guess, because of what we had. No one really knew human trafficking yet. I mean, it was legal system, but my small town, they didn't know anything about it.
Right.
We didn't use that avenue. So rape and conspiracy, he goes to prison. He gets a law degree while he's there, comes out, rapes and beats his wife. She drops the charges, gets a divorce. And then on the 10-year mark, and when I found out he got out of prison, even though I was 1,300 miles away, I panicked. I was afraid of social media. I was afraid of being in public. I never would say his name. If I ever talked about my situation, I would never talk about where I was from. You know, I really hid it from a lot of people for a long time. But at the 10-year mark, and he gets out, it's not even like 6 months later. This man has become an executive of the estate for some organization and embezzles $140,000 in 4 months. And when I find this out, and he gets the exact same judge that we had 10 years before that, I have the newspaper article that says if it wasn't for the girl in the hot tub, we wouldn't know how evil this man was. So now, so you never know what your impact really is going to be.
Absolutely.
So I, as much as I mourned the 7 years, I'm almost like grateful, because he got so narcissistic and self that he got himself in trouble, and now he's there for life. So he won't be coming out anytime soon. And that also gives me some confidence to talk to you, right? Like, I can share without a lot of questions. But over the last 2 years, I've been really honored because, you know, I sort of left like hell in a handbag. Like I was like out of there. And I didn't get to say thank you. So local news channel picked my story up recently, and she asked me if I had any regrets. Is there anything I wish I would have done? And I said, I really wish I would have been able to thank my athletic director for seeing me. And so we made it possible. He came down here and I gave him the mandated reporter award, right? It might be a fancy paperweight on his desk, but it meant a lot to me, right? And then in that, I was reconnected with my detective. And so this past year in February, I brought him down and gave him like the above and beyond police department award.
Wow.
And I got to honor him too. And it was really cool because we got to train some local law enforcement with our story, him and I together. So over the past 10 years, that's what I've been doing. Ever since he was in prison, I was like, I got loud. I started telling people the story. I started training and educating. I pursued my PhD. I'm almost done. I have one class left. And I know it's really exciting because what I really want to do is to empower those survivor voices like myself. It's one thing to hear about human trafficking from somebody who's never experienced it. It's another to get their side of both the trauma and the healing and go, what did you miss? And they're able to speak so eloquently and deliberate on what we need to do in order to have a better society. I don't take it lightly, like to have this position. I am graced by God. I think that, turning evil for good is an understatement, because now just the amount of different places I've been able to go and see and speak light into, it changes the dynamic. Like I said at the beginning, it changes it from a fear-driven space to hope. And that, hey, we can actually overcome this thing. It's been around, since the Bible, unfortunately. Nehemiah is my favorite story, but, it's in Joseph. So I know it's not necessarily going to go away.
Right.
What we really have to say is that we can do better as a community, not to be ignorant and say it doesn't happen here, but to say it doesn't happen here because we're so well educated and we have the proper protocols in place.
Right. Absolutely. You said a lot, and I'm sitting here listening in your story. And what always baffles me, well, number one, during this whole ordeal that what you were going through at this coach's house, where was the wife?
Right. So she would leave and just go out of town. Sometimes she was there. They did hold her. She didn't get any charges because they ended up seeing her as a victim too. But, there's a level of manipulation that I think she played in that, and coercion. But yeah, I hate to be like, she did sort of get some repercussions at the end of it all, but she was not held accountable in the way that she should have been.
You would think, as we grew up thinking that our schools are, if you have a problem at home, if you have a problem, within the family or whatever, you have to go to a school counselor, to your teacher. And now it's to the point now, schools are not even a safe place because of the fact that, like you said, you can get a monsters like this coach who, is such a manipulator, and he knows exactly how to place himself in positions to where he can groom and manipulate young minds. And you have administration that refuses or are just so delusional and knowing that this stuff doesn't, well, it's not going to happen. This is not, in our school, this is not happening. She's just a fast girl who's, been around the school and everything. And now look, and and like the judge said, if it wasn't for the girl in the bathtub,
right?
you know,
It's like it isn't detected in a metal detector, therefore it won't hurt you and it can't happen. And
right.
when you really study human trafficking and you look at the dynamic of a trafficker, yes, they can be monsters, but most of them experienced violence as a kid and it was unsolved. And then they grew up and they didn't want to become the abuser anymore, or the victim anymore, so they become the abuser.
Right.
And so you always have to go, what happened to him? Well, here's the fun fact, Harriet. His mom was the provider of the fake Rolex watches.
Oh,
his mom was also the one who got him into the executive of the estate position.
Oh, wow.
So if we're really going to point fingers,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
generational.
Right. Yeah, we can go back to mom, and mom can probably go back to her, what she, yeah.
And
yeah.
what's horrifying is that she worked at the University of Michigan.
Oh, did she? So she's
So she set it all up for this guy. Like, I almost
wow.
have pity on the coach because he almost didn't know any better. You know,
Yeah,
it's not to say he couldn't make better choices and that he could have done better. But when you really look at the generational line of trafficking, it isn't just this third party, random stranger danger thing. Like, it is
exactly.
very close to us.
It
And
very
if we
well.
don't break that curse that's placed upon us, we will in turn create a new generation of evil. Um,
Exactly.
and so that's why I'm so passionate about those survivor voices, because the healing occurs when they tell the story. They tell it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to get to the point where it doesn't make them cry anymore. And when it doesn't make you cry anymore, that's what healing looks like.
Right. Right. Yeah, you're right. It's no more the creepy neighbor down the
Right.
street.
The stranger danger with the white van.
It's no more the creepy neighbor. No.
No.
It's right in your own backyard. It's right in your family. I mean, it's in your church. Let's be honest. We could,
And
that's another story and segment in and of itself. Um,
yes. And I have the perfect survivor leader to tell that story, just so you know.
mm,
Because you're right. And when working with the who are first responders, right, whether it's social work to EMT,
mm-hmm.
one of our major things that we want this group to know is don't just write them off as an addict or someone who doesn't care about their kid, because most of the time those are the calls you're going to get. We don't find survivors of human trafficking when you get a call to 911 and they're like, help, I'm being trafficked,
Right.
because 99% of the time they don't know. And
Exactly.
so we really do see them at car accidents or cardiac arrest or assault, or, you know, something where something else went down. And if you don't have that keen eye, you're going to miss them. And you might be the one that actually saves their life. So, you know, I always tell law enforcement that, like, believe them every time. Believe them
Mm-hmm.
every time, because it doesn't hurt you at all to make a mistake when
Right.
you followed through with believing them. What hurts is that you didn't respond at all.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm a state parole officer, and we are now mandated to learn about human trafficking. And, you know, do not think that just because she's a survivor of an addict or she's in a domestic violence situation, you got to look closely at
Right.
the situation and see what's going on. And I personally, I did have a human trafficker on my caseload. You know, it's just education is what you're doing for us as first responders. We can't look at things just on the surface. You got to
Right.
keep asking questions. You got to keep, if something doesn't look right or doesn't feel right, use that instinct and just, dig further, and you surprise all what you uncover.
Right. And
Um,
that is the biggest thing. You said it, like, it's an instinct. It's a gut feeling. Something isn't sitting right. I don't
mhm.
know why. I can't put my finger on it, but I know that this ain't right. And those are usually when you're spot on,
Right.
because it's the hair on the back of your neck that goes, hmm. And even in the hospitals, you know, we have one of the biggest cases that I've seen that gets missed all the time is the mom who doesn't want her baby, or the neonatal abstinence syndrome, and we're missing them. You know, I had a NICU nurse. I interviewed her at like 11 o'clock at night one time. Like, I was woken up, called my friend, you know, and asked her some questions, and she's like,
Mhm.
in human trafficking, Alicia, not me. Like, I don't know anything about it. I was like, yeah, but I need to ask you some questions about what goes on with your profession. And
Mhm.
so as she's explaining it to me, you know, this mom will have this child who is born addicted, goes into the system of foster care relatively quickly. And if within 3 days that mama's okay, they go home. And,
Right.
and I was like, okay, well, do you ever see her engage with the child? No, not usually. Okay, do you ever, um, you know, send her home with any information or resources? Well, yeah, you know, we send her home with this pamphlet. Okay, do you ever check in with her during the time she's away? Ask her some harder questions. Does she have anybody visit her? No, 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 no. I said, well, do you ever see her again? Well, now that you say it, 9 months later, when she's having another baby, born addicted to narcotics.
Wow.
And I said, there it is, because you're
Wow.
missing it. You saw the neglected, disconnected mom. Of course she is. That baby's a product of rape. That baby is not
Exactly.
something she can, like, emotionally attach to. And even if she wants to, she knows that it's going to be violated and have violence against it if she brings it home. So
Absolutely.
let's see her, right? And then just to give you a heads up of what we're doing with Survivor-Led Solutions starting on Thursday, I'm really excited. We've started navigating the male survivor leader role. So it's a very uncovered space. They say, 1 in 4 women will be sexually exploited in their lifetime, maybe 1 in 6 or 1 in 13 males, depending on which research you look at. I say it's underreported. And, the biggest vulnerability population group are our homeless, runaway youth, or LGBTQ community within that. So when I started getting these calls from male survivor leaders saying, hey, we really need support. We love what you're doing with the women. How can we get into that? I was like taking some instant demographics. And you know what I found? It's not just the homeless LGBTQ. It's married Christian sex survivors from their youth. And they're out there on an island just trying to make it work because nobody believes that. Right. And then the stigma, I can't go to my church with this. I can't, I don't know. And so we're launching that platform for the males moving forward because I realized, A, I want to have equality for everyone. They should be able to voice, but B, I didn't realize how lonely they are out there trying to make it work. They're opening programs, but they don't get enough support because they're like, wait, what happened to you?
Right. Wow.
How come you didn't say no? How did you not stop it? Why didn't you not fight them? And they're like, that's not how this works. And you clearly have no idea. So not that I'm a male survivor, but what I do know is that we need safe spaces. And so that's what I want to host is the space for them to have their own like mentorship group. It's more powerful when they get together and have conversations. And then we'll fundraise to help host a retreat. So
how can people reach out to you if they want to give or donate?
So our website is survivorledsolutions.org.
Okay.
So July is really exciting. It's our 1-year anniversary. We're asking organizations, businesses, and individuals to figure out what they do really well and how do we add anti-trafficking to it. And whether it's through fundraising or advocating or spreading awareness, we provide the materials. We just ask that you share them. I'm just trying to, again, regenerate whatever I can as far as funding goes to help host those retreats. I'm really excited. This is kind of top secret news, but we're launching it. As I want to create a certification program so that survivor leaders can have the credentials, not only to say, hey, I'm, a social worker, but what else? How many hours of training have you had? How many hours of healing have you had? And so we're creating that. And so that's going to cost a little bit because it is, a platform that I have to create.
Right.
But I'm really excited about launching that because I think it's going to help on a national level build the credibility of these people who are going into the jails, going in with law enforcement, social workers, mental health providers. And
absolutely. And I know that they're here in Ohio. They do have some kind of credential where you can get CEUs, from attending trainings such as yours. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be. So I want to invite you, and if you want to put this on there, there's 2 different conferences coming up. The first one is the IAEM, which is our first responders. And it's in Colorado at the Broadmoor, but it's like the emergency management.
Okay.
IAEM conference, and I'll send you what the information is. But that's something, that your listeners would probably benefit from going to.
Absolutely. It looked like I might have lost her. I hope not. Well, in any event, share this video and audio. Again, her name is Alicia Tappan, survivorledwebsolutions.org. Please donate. She's doing great things for the community and for those to help those who have been a survivor and victims of human trafficking, and also those of us who work in the first responders professions. We need the training. We need these resources to help our community. So with that being said, all the information I will, once I receive it from her, I will definitely make sure that it's in the show notes and that you will get all the information that you need. But thank you. I want to thank Alicia so much. We've got disconnected, but I will invite her back again later. And I just enjoyed and really was informed of what she is doing and what, here she is. I'll have her finish up. Sorry about that. Somehow we got cut off, but I was telling everybody that you will send me the information, and I'll make sure everybody get the information that is that you have to offer for people to, either if they want to contribute or attend any of their conferences. And lastly, talk about the Brave Girl Diaries. I know that's
Yeah.
coming out, and when is it coming out?
All right. So Brave Girl Diaries is a 20-year ambition of writing a book about my story that throughout my PhD, I realized how can I incorporate the tools that I'm gaining from my education and mixing it with my story. And the beautiful piece is that it's half a narrative, meaning half of my story, and then the other half is tools and journaling. So
Mm.
you'll be able to take quizzes and tests and different personality styles, and you'll see kind of what makes you vulnerable. So the first book is all about prevention. It's working on your ability to say no or building trust. Then the second book is intervention. So we're going to continue on the story and learning about how we can intervene with these moments. So when you encounter a trafficking situation, are you able to identify the victim in a criminal situation? And then the third book, which is the final, is the rehabilitation. Now, what do you need? So it's not just a self-help book by any means, but it has tools in there to do it. It's really an opportunity to look yourself in the mirror and go, are you willing to stand up for yourself? And how are you going to do that? It's also a really good program piece for other organizations or people who have teenage youth, and have those hard conversations. So it's a little bit of
I'm
my story and a little bit of your story.
I'm excited, and I think that that should be a great tool for us as first responders. To pass on to our, people
Yes.
that we encounter within our jobs. So
Yeah. And January 2025. So January
2025.
is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so, as an honor to that, I wanted to launch the book. So, we're going to be on the shelves come the end of January, and you can pre order, I think, right around Christmas time. So,
Oh,
I will give
good.
you that link
Okay.
too.
So I'll make sure that information is available for the audience as well. Thank you so much, Alicia. I really enjoy, as always, working with you. You are, such an inspiration, and just your narrative, your story. I mean, you're so relatable that I'm sure, anybody who needs help, they can reach out to you, and you're right there, to
Absolutely.
guide them.
Always. Yeah.
So
So, I'm here for it. You just tell me what I need to do when I need to do it. And, you can share my information. I really
I
appreciate
sure
this
will. I
opportunity.
sure will. Matter of fact, I need to talk with you later on about a course that I'm creating, and I want
Okay.
you to help, with as far as the human trafficking piece, and perhaps probably your workbook and your diaries can be a definitely good piece that I would like to incorporate.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm happy to.
All right, Alicia, take care and be safe, and I will talk with you soon.
Sounds good. Have a good
All
one.
right, you too. Bye.